Do you come to these things very often? Oh man, it is good to be back. Sound clips with commentary. I am your host. We're gonna have some fun. The house is quiet. I just turned off the air conditioner. We'll see how long that lasts. We got a pair of bookies here. Not just one pair of bookies, but we have 3 different bookies that we're going to be doing excuse me, sound clips with commentary for. If you haven't put on your headphones, now would be a good time. This guy right here, his name is Randy, not to be confused with the Cheap Audio Man. Key difference between this guy and the Cheap Audio Man is this guy right here is a dummy, and our good friend Randy, Cheap Audio Man, is not a dummy at all. He's a lot smarter than you guys think. All right. So, Neumann KU100 binaural dummy head. If you've already, I've given you a second to put on your headphones, and if you've already put on your headphones, you're probably already like, wow, this is a little bit different than typical sound clips. And that's because, well, it is because we are doing a binaural recording, which is kind of fun. It's been a while since we have done sound clips with commentary, and so I want you to kind of get used to the sound of the room. You guys hear that? All right. This house, built in the 60s, has all beautiful oak floor, this hardwood oak flooring, and the house is lifted up. And so guess what we get? We get footfall issues. And so that is something that you may or may not be able to hear. Just giving you a heads up as to what to expect with that. So consider that when you're listening. Besides that, let me go ahead and let's see here. Your left, this is the sound of my voice from the left speaker. Kind of gives you an idea of how things sound back here with the human voice. And this over here is the right speaker. So it kind of gives you an idea of the sound of my voice coming from the right. The rig is out of control. We are not using budget-friendly gear today. We have the Holo Audio KTE version of the Serene, my Maydac Zenith, Anuos Zenith, and then some new guys, which I thought would be fun. These Burson Grand Tour Timekeeper X3. I don't know the model. It's typical new record day. I'll leave links to everything down below. Anti-cables for the speaker cables, GR Research power cords, and then a plethora of different cables in the back that I'm still messing around with. So here's what we're going to do. I want to get straight to this. I don't want to waste any more time. We have 3 different speakers at 3 different price points, and I want you guys to hear the differences in the speakers. These ones, which through the magic of editing you cannot see, these guys are under $1,000. I'll be more specific, but I don't want to give anything away. Under $800. So that gives you an idea on these. Let's go ahead and dive in and let's have some fun. Oh, one more thing real quick. The sound clips are all on Epidemic Sound. This is a subscription-based service that I pay for. I will be posting these same sound clips to patrons a little bit later today. So sign up, be a patron if you want. And if you don't like the sound clips, I'm sorry. This is what I have. They're royalty free. I can use them without getting dinged on YouTube. And so yeah, let's do this. from what I hear, there seems to be an emphasis, an immediate emphasis that you can hear pretty clearly in the room. I don't know if it's going to translate on headphones or whatever you're listening to with. There is a lively upper mid-range and top end. It does sound, to me it sounds a little bit tilted, as if it's a bit more expressive in that bandwidth, right? So upper mid-range and top end extension is a bit more pronounced. It's kind of leading the charge. And at the same time, there does seem to be perhaps a similar, if not the same, emphasis on maybe bass. You know, maybe a little bit. The bass is there, and it's expressive. Maybe not the most. I would say textured bass that I've ever heard, but it sounds immediately like we have kind of a thumpy sort of a bass sound, and so that combined with this sort of expressive top end, I would say right out of the gate will lead to a pretty exciting speaker to listen to. You know, like, wow, this is going to give you some fireworks. Let's continue. Interesting, a bit smoother, a little bit more refined than our last pair of speakers. Those are my immediate thoughts. I don't feel right out of the gate that anything is trying to be pushed forward or elevated or pronounced. I feel like we have entered the territory of, hey, we're just going to play the music, and we're going to just let the chips fall wherever they fall, and that's what we're going to do. So right out of the gate, these sound a bit more balanced to me. What do you guys think? Let's move on. As if these sit somewhere in between the first set of speakers that we heard and the second set of speakers that we heard. That there is some expressiveness, there is a little bit of emphasis on upper mid-range and beyond. It seems like it, but not as much as the first set. It's almost like that's been brought down just a little bit, and my goodness me, we've got some bass on our hands, quite a bit of bass. Yeah, so far my opinion hasn't changed. You know, with those snaps we got, they sound really, really snappy. You know, it just seems like this particular speaker is placing an emphasis on that is what they want you to hone in on and listen to, and that's fine. It's just a character of this particular speaker.
And once again, I feel the same way about bass. Is I feel like, okay, yeah, I mean, there seems to be some pretty chunky, relatively deep, but kind of robust sounding bass. Maybe not the most, I would say, tonally accurate, certainly not as textured as some other speakers that we spent time with, but it's pronounced. Let's move on. You know, I gotta say, maybe backpedal a little bit with, you know, some of the boominess that I heard on the original speaker as these clips progress, because I'm doing these one at a time and then I'm editing it, you know, later for you guys. So one thing that I'm going to continue saying about the first set of speakers that we're listening to is that the bass sounds a little bit boomy, kind of well-farty. I'm still hearing a bit of that even with these, and that is definitely attributed to the room. You know, like I mentioned, we have some footfall issues, and so there is a bit of room boom that I'm hearing, an extension in bass that is based on the room, for lack of a better term. But with that being said, I'm also hearing a little bit more resolution in the bass, a little bit more texture and tone, and a little bit more separation between the notes, where I'm able to kind of lock on and track the notes being played in bass. It doesn't sound like it's all kind of one thing glued together. I feel like there's a little bit of separation, which I do like. Yeah, for sure, that's what I'm hearing, is with those snaps, that's the dead giveaway, is it's reminding me more of the first speaker than it is the second speaker, so there is a little bit more emphasis placed on those snaps, but it's not as like, and here's some snaps that you're going to love. It's more like, here's some snaps that you're going to enjoy. It's different. It sounds different. It sounds a little bit more natural than the first set to me. And again, I gotta say, the bass is substantial. It's confident. It's definitely there, more so than our second set of speakers for sure. And I would say I am hearing some texture. I'm hearing some leading texture, some definition in the bass, which I really like. Of the three tracks that we've listened to so far, I think I like that one so far the most on these. I think that acoustic guitar sounded pretty sweet, you know. The top end of the acoustic, it did sound a little bit pronounced, but I think that just based on the recording and how smooth that acoustic sounds in general, it sounded a little bit more natural to me than the previous two tracks. It sounded pretty nice. And there wasn't a whole lot of really low-end information, so the bass didn't really stand out on that track, so I don't have any commentary there. In any event, let's move on. That track sounded fantastic, at least from where I'm at, where I'm sitting and what I hear and what I'm listening for. That sounded very balanced. I love the sound of the detail that was being picked up on the strings. I don't feel like it was only about the detail in the strings, because I felt like there was some body with it, and so there was this game of balance. And whenever you have that, the sonic presentation is just a bit more complete. That puzzle feels like it fits together a little more nicely, where things just all sound really natural. No commentary needed. I thought that track on these speakers sounded brilliant. I really enjoyed that quite a bit. Yeah, so let's talk for just a quick second. So I used to work for Circuit City, Best Buy, and we had that speaker room with all the buttons that you would press to play back the speaker. And typically the speaker that won in that scenario that everybody would buy sounds a lot like these, where you could tell that there's some excitement, there's some like fireworks immediately going off with the top end, and then you have this bass that sounds confident. It does, and it lends itself to kind of this sort of ooh, 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 like that. Look, I describe this on my channel all the time as well farts. I don't know how else to say it. Some folks like it, and so when I say well farts, I'm not trying to put you down if that's the kind of bass that you're after. I'm perfectly fine with that, but there's something kind of ooh, ooh, woofy about it, and it's not the cleanest, tightest presentation of bass that there is out there. There's many speakers that we have spent time with that don't play that game. They're not trying to win you over with that, and I think that this particular speaker, for better or for worse, I think that it is. It's trying to win you over with that. You know what was most interesting about this particular track is, when we compare this with our first speaker, this is where I gave the Best Buy Circuit City example. And what I noticed with these is, first and foremost, it didn't have that same effect where it's like, wow, zippy right out of the gates. It didn't really do that. It actually sounded a bit more, neutral and natural, and I would dare say maybe a little bit boring in comparison. But what was fascinating is I don't remember noticing or taking note of the fact that there are some dynamics to play in this track, that there's a point where there's a bit more energy that comes into this song, and I didn't notice it with the previous speaker because it was almost like we were doing 100 right out of the gate. Like, here's a whole lot of detail, man, you're going to love this, and you're not even going to realize that the band still has some gas in the tank. And with these, when that happened, when I heard that, I was like, oh, we went from kind of, okay, 80 miles an hour to then 100 miles an hour, where things start kind of lifting and they're a little bit more expressive. So that was pretty interesting to take note of that. Wow. Man, so again, I feel like I'm just going to be saying the same thing here, but it's what I hear, so I'm going to report what I hear. These, to me, are sitting somewhere in between the first and the second in terms of their voicing. So they are a little bit more expressive, but I don't think that it is out of the realm of sounding natural. I feel like we're still in that category of a pretty linear sound with just a dash, just a hint of, and here's a little extra color. We're gonna paint with a brush that's just a little pretty, a little prettier than dead neutral. I feel like that's what I'm hearing. The bass is very substantial with these speakers, no doubt about it. When that track starts on the other speakers, it'll be interesting to see whether or not I feel the same, but I feel like that first start of that guitar starting to play sounds a little bit muffled. I feel like I've heard this track enough to know that with some other speakers, it sounds a bit more, there's a bit more resolution there, and with these, it just sounds almost like, it sounds kind of like something is covering that electric guitar. It's not letting it out of the cage. And it's interesting because I would imagine where that sits in the audio spectrum is on the lower side. So we're getting out of bass, moving out of even mid bass, getting into lower mid range, maybe the heart of mid band. I think what I'm saying is this. I think that what I'm hearing more in that could be an attribute of this particular woofer, that when we talk about texture and tone in bass, well, with a lot of these speakers, that's going to be a direct reflection of the cone material, and how much resolution there is to hear coming from this particular material. So it'll be interesting once we get to the other ones, and we'll see whether or not we hear any differences there, because there are going to be some different materials here with speaker cones, tweeters, woofers, you name it, between these three. So that'll be kind of fun. So this was the track that we heard on speaker number 1, where I felt like that guitar right out of the gate sounded a little bit muffled, and as I'm hearing it a second time, I was definitely right. So, what's happening there is the guitarist is using what's called a wah-wah, and he's using it in a fixed position. So it's set on a particular frequency, and it is supposed to sound a little bit muffled by design. That's the effect that the guitarist is trying to convey with that wah-wah sound in that fixed position. But what's fascinating and interesting is that even in that fixed position, going from speaker to speaker, I feel like what I described earlier is spot on, that now there's like a blanket that's been removed from that particular guitar sound, and it sounds a little bit more, there's more resolution there that wasn't there the first time around. And so could that be attributed to, cone material, things like that we talk about on this channel? I would say there's a good possibility, yes. I think that could very well be true. Could we go as far as to say that it might be components inside the speaker, inductors, capacitors, wire, all that kind of stuff? Well, the answer is clearly yes, but let's not go down that rabbit hole. I'm going to get some cranky comments in a quick hurry. All right, let's go. I think I like that track the most on these speakers. Of the 3 speakers so far, everything that I've said is like a positive attribute. That wah-wah guitar, it has that texture and it has that resolution that I'm looking for right out of the gate, but there seems to be some tension, and it might be the lower frequencies that I'm hearing in the room that is they're starting to come to life, because the bass on these speakers is quite substantial, that there seems to be an added element of, man, we're getting into the lower frequencies, and with that being there, there seems to be a bit more suspense or tension with this song that is good. It's like, wow, now that that's there, the song kind of opens up in a very interesting way, and it sounds more like a complete performance.
Say something like you love me and make my day, like you always do, like you always do. Hold my hand and look me in the eyes so I can tell you how I feel, tell you how I feel.
No commentary. That sounded pretty nice. I don't know exactly where she sits in the you know, in the bandwidth frequency spectrum in terms of her voice, but she didn't sound so pronounced, you know. So I thought that her voice actually sounded pretty good right there, wherever she sits in that spectrum. Nothing about that track really made me feel one way or another about the speaker. I thought that that was a pretty good sounding track.
Say something like you love me and make my day, like you always do, like you always do. Hold my hand and look me in the eyes so I can tell you how I feel, tell you how I feel.
So I liked this track on the first set of speakers that we heard, and I like it again on this track. I feel like, and I'd be curious to see if you guys are trucking with me, I feel like her voice has a little more body this time around. I feel like it's a bit more, there's a bit more meat on the bones this time around. So I'm not gonna die on that hill. I'm not for sure that's what I'm hearing, but I feel like her voice just had a little bit more body, a little bit more is there. Let me know what you guys think. Let's continue.
Say something like you love me and make my day, like you always do, like you always do. Hold my hand and look me in the eyes so I can tell you how I feel, tell you how I feel.
I think that I liked the second set of speakers with this one the most out of all of these, specifically with her voice. The other instruments I would say are off the table with this commentary, but specifically with her voice, I feel like we've now moved more in the direction of it being a little bit thinner than what I recall it sounding like on the second set of speakers. I feel like there was just more of that puzzle piece there on the second set than the first set and now this set. It's closer with these ones, but not my favorite track on these ones so far.
Oh, here the ocean is near, but you dug a hole and buried my fear.
Alright, so always gotta be honest, that was my least favorite track so far. Is immediately I just felt like, stop that. You're not gonna win me over. I'm not 14 anymore. You know, I don't need you to cram this sort of high definition, you know, over the top end. You don't need to cram that down my throat. And, you know, going from the sound of the guitar as well as that tambourine, it's just too expressive. It's just leading the charge. And knowing this track and having heard it on many speakers, it's not supposed to sound like that. And so there's something going on with this speaker that they are really trying to captivate you for the first, you know, short period and win you over, kind of like we said in that Best Buy or Circuit City example of you press that button and you're like, wow, yeah, these are the ones. Let's take these guys home.
the ocean is near, but you dug a hole and buried my fear.
If you remember, this is the track that I kind of bagged on with the previous speaker. I guess that I'm editing this, so of course, you know, because you just heard it, my commentary on the first speaker. And on this one, I think it could very well be the recording, that it's just a bit more expressive out of the gate, but it is more, I think that it's a bit more neutral sounding with this speaker, that there's not one particular thing that is like really standing out. I feel like the entire presentation is a bit more neutral and or natural sounding to me.
The ocean is near, but you dug a hole and buried my fear.
Yeah, that's a dead giveaway. Now that we've heard that same track on 3 different speakers, I can confirm that it is top heavy. It's definitely in the recording that there's just a bit more emphasis in the upper frequencies, where things are just kind of placed a little bit more forward. With that being said, I thought that sounded nice. I think that, again, with that track, it sits somewhere in between the first speaker and the second speaker. A little bit more exciting, you know. It's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do here. But I don't think that I would enter fatigue listening to that track with these, whereas with the first set of speakers, I think that that would be a potential consequence, as it might get too fatiguing for me.
We get your soul, hunting alone, traveling from the deep forest into the sun. In war, there's never an option to run.
I liked that track up until she started singing. I felt like her voice sounded a little shouty to me. There seems to be something in the bandwidth of her voice where something is just jumping out at me in a way that I don't necessarily feel sounds all that natural. There's something shouty about that, and I would imagine that if I sat through that entire song, I might feel a little bit fatigued.
We get your soul, hunting alone, traveling from the deep forest into the sun. In war, there's never an option to run.
That sounded nice. I liked her voice. I felt like it wasn't shouty this time around. I felt like everything was kind of in its right place. No commentary. I liked that track on these. I thought that one sounded pretty nice. I liked that track on these. Something about her voice just sounded clear and concise. Maybe a little bit on the exciting side of the spectrum, but I didn't mind it so much with these speakers. I think it's a dobro guitar, I'm pretty sure. There were times where, again, that poppiness being a little bit pronounced might get fatiguing after a while, but I feel like this is, again, one of those tracks that might actually at the same time win people over in a quick hurry, because you kind of have this deep sort of thubby type bass playing into kind of like this room boom type scenario, like boom, boom, whoo, and then you have this, sort of pronounced, exciting top end. That recipe works. It's worked for a long time, and a lot of people dig that sound. Yeah, so I feel like a broken record at this point, but compared to the first set with this one, the top end of those acoustics, not as zippy as the first one, not as pronounced, not as like leading the charge. I feel like it's toned down a little bit, and I feel like the bass doesn't sound quite as boomy or exaggerated. I'm still getting that thump, but it's certainly not as expressive sounding as the previous speaker. I gotta say, Randy, I liked that track on these, man. Something about, the bass, that thumpy bass sounding a little bit cleaner than the first one. It was a bit shy on the second pair, but now it's back and it sounds just as confident as the first one, but I don't know if you agree with me, Randy, and you better agree with me, or you're going to go back in the case for a month, minimum, maybe 2 months. I think that I'm just getting a bit more resolution in the bass. It's like I'm hearing it more clearly. It's a bit more concise sounding. There's something about it that just sounds right. And combine that with this a little bit emphasize top end, but not to the point where I'm like, stop it. Stop doing that to me. You know, it sounded about right. I really liked it. So that concludes our very first speaker. Time to unveil it. So through the magic of editing, 1, 2, 3, go! Klipsch RP-600 Mark IIs. RP-600M Mark IIs. I got these in from Safe and Sound. I'm going to be putting them through their paces, but these are the speakers that you were listening to. I think they're priced $750 for the pair, and those are my impressions on these guys. What do you guys think? Comments, let me know. Did you enjoy the sound of these speakers? What did you like about them? If you didn't enjoy the sound of these speakers, what did you not like about them? Give me your feedback. Let me know if I missed anything, or let's have some fun in the comment section. All right. Yeah, so that's them. Speaker number 2. You guys ready for the grand reveal? Any guesses out there, Randy? 1, 2. Buckle my shoes. I don't know why I did that. That was dumb. 1, 2, 3. Go. XLS Encore. And you might be thinking, why would you do that? Those are do-it-yourself speakers only. Well, I've got news for you. Not anymore. I mean, well, they still are. You can still build Encores if you want, but GR Research now offers turnkey solutions, which now makes this a compelling fight. I know that I talk about GR Research a lot on my channel, and Danny is a good friend of mine, so full disclosure, Danny is my friend. He is a good friend of mine. You can take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm perfectly fine with that. I do not receive any kind of a commission, or there's no weird agreement between him and I of how many XLS Encore kits are sold that I'm getting, you know, some money floated under the table. You're going to have to take my word on that. That's not happening. Turnkey solution, XLS Encore, $1,500. You can buy a set like these, not exactly like these, but close enough to where I feel confident you would be hearing these same things that we're walking through today. I think this set is going to go, I believe it's going to Jay. I think this is the exact set that he is going to review, and I've been burning them in for Danny for the last week. But yeah, XLS Encore, one of my favorite bookies that I've spent time with. We've got a paper cone woofer, we got a soft dome tweeter, we have really boutique parts on the inside. If you're the kind of guy that thinks that that kind of stuff makes a difference, and I do think that those things do make a difference. Well, this is what we ended up with, that's how these sounded. All right.
guitars. Reminds me of ZZ Top. All right, guys. One, two, three. Buchardt S400 Mark IIs. Yeah. All right. That's the show for today. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you know what, or don't. I mean, I don't like saying that anymore. If you enjoy my stuff, you're gonna do it. I don't need to remind you. All right. Buchardt S400 Mark IIs, and yeah. Here's the thing. Paper cone woofer, soft dome tweeter, waveguide. So we have control directivity to work with, which is really cool. Boutique parts on the inside. The voicing on these, it's interesting. I feel like it's slightly elevated, perhaps intentionally elevated, not dead nuts neutral. It's just lifted a little bit. And with these, I don't mind it. I feel like it works. So, yeah. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys in the next video.